There are regular dreams and there are big dreams. In this video, I want to show you what big dreams look like so that you don't miss them because they are signaling profound change and I want you to be able to recognize it. Now, if you're new to my channel, hi, I'm Vanessa Bright. I'm a spiritual teacher, I'm a dream guide and dream interpreter and a transformational mentor or coach. I specialize in deep dream work, in shadow healing, soul-rooted integration. Now, if you're on a path of awakening in any form and you want to go all the way in, you want to find those buried gifts, you want to connect with your soul and your higher self, and you want to live an expansive life, you're in the right place. Now, let's get into what big dreams actually are. As I've said, they signal transformation and even initiation, and there is a difference. Initiation means you are shifting into a whole other holographically different, raised version of yourself. Big dreams can come whether you're actively engaged in dream work or not, which is why I want to talk to everybody who happens to come across this video because now I do dream work all the time. I live in and live and dream. I live and breathe dreams. I live and dream too. Uh, but I also have heard from people who haven't had a dream in a long time and then suddenly one pops up that they remember and all of a sudden it's a big dream. So, what are big dreams? And what what else is there, right? So, I'm going to just pull up my notes real quick. Give you a lot as well. So, we are not minimizing them. I am not here to say only pay attention to the big ones because regular dreams are things that are showing you where you're at, what your healing is doing, how you're doing in your relationships, how you are progressing on your journey, what shadows you still have to work on. You're getting messages, you're getting insights into your psyche and in your unconscious. And big dreams do all of that and more. So I have 8 points to share with you on themes and aspects that can show up in dreams that signal that it is a big dream. And when I say big, I put a capital B. That's Jung's term. He figured out that there are dreams and then there are dreams. So, number one, and this is the one that actually prompted me to create this video, which is if you're dreaming of body things happening to your body, any body part, alterations, physical wounds, somatic things, your body morphing and changing within the dream. If your dream is marked or changed or wounded, it might be speaking to a soul level restructuring. You come here in, you're a soul. You are way bigger than your body, right? Only a small part of our soul actually fits into the body. And still, this is how we navigate the world, right? So in our dreams, when the body is altered in some way, and this takes a little bit of practice of just kind of discovering what that kind of alteration means. I'm not talking like you get a paper cut in a dream, although you never know, right? That could be, the opening to a whole thing. You might also have a series of dreams where it starts with a paper cut and then it ends with something really, really big. And it might sound scary, but actually, it's not about danger. It's not about death. It's not about any kind of like problematic thing happening or imminent. This is a symbol. Your body is a symbol. You're in a dream, right? Your body is not your 3D body. So if you have, like, I just had a dream that prompted this, where I had a big cut right here across my finger. And I looked into this cut and I was looking into a world. I was looking into a chasm, but it was bottomless and it was like looking into outer space. So, big dream right there, right? The wound becomes the teacher, becomes the portal. Now it has actually become the portal into this video and is now affecting you as well. That's what a big dream does, is that it shifts things in a big way, and it also signals shifts. So if you are dreaming about some kind of wound and you're attending to the wound in whatever way, right? That's also speaking to the wounding, the metaphorical wounding, the traumas, the experiences as a child or later. And it can be speaking to this larger transformation that you're having. Another thing that can be happening in a dream that's happened to me in a couple of them is experiencing the effects of a plant, like a plant medicine. I've had a couple of dreams where I drank ayahuasca in the dream and I was feeling the effects. So that's kind of meta, right? So actually, it meant that I got to do my ceremony in a dream. And sometimes that can mean that you're being called to sit with the medicine in your 3D life. And sometimes it can be that you are actually doing that work already in the dream realm. So, again, I'm not going to be able to give you specific meanings to each of these things because they are individual. But I'm giving you kind of pointers as to what can show up in a dream that indicates that it's something to really pay attention to and to sit with. And maybe come see someone like me and receive some of those deeper messages that maybe are trying to come through, but your ego might be blocking because they are challenging. The ego is very small. The ego does not want us to see the things that are coming through in our dreams. Or you can just sit with the dream on your own and ask your higher self, what's really happening? What's coming through here? So, my next point is animal encounters in a dream. So, this comes from the shamanic point of view. If you listen to some of the other dream teachers, they will have other ways of explaining animal dreams. But from what I've seen, my dreams and the dreams of those that I work with, animal encounters are totemic messages, are shamanic visitations. They are aspects of you nonetheless, because that's, the cardinal rule of dream interpretation is that everything is you. But that animal aspect, so recently I had a dream about a fox, and there was a specific color to the fox. It was a brown fox. So you look all of that up, unless that's already an animal that you work with, in which case then it's a really big dream, right? But you look up and you connect with the main energies of that animal or insect, or I'm sure you can relate to some of these, like seeing spiders in a dream, right? Seeing bugs of some sort. Those are not random. Those are not just things that are bugging you. That can be part of it, but very often and more often than not, and the more you work with the dreams, even more so, they actually are speaking to a message. Some aspect of you is trying to come through that relates to that animal. If those animals are interacting with you in any way, that's a really big sign that this is a big dream, that something is happening on this very, very deep shamanic level. If the animals are speaking to you, they're teaching you something, if they're pursuing you, if they're biting you, if they're eating you, right? If they're merging with you, if they are doing something to your body. I had a dream I mentioned in one of my earlier videos where I was eaten alive by a bear. That was a profound, big initiation dream where I was actually going into the body of an animal and I was dying. There was something in me that died and was born into a higher aspect of my soul. So pay attention if an animal appears, and certainly if the animal appears more than once. When I speak about spider dreams, I've had spiders show up in several of my dreams, and I know it's because spider is one of my guides. And so there is an entire lineage of meaning that unfolds when a creature reappears. But even if you just see it that one time, sit with it, look it up. Whatismyspiritanimal.com is a beautiful website. Don't get overwhelmed by the amount of associations each animal or creature has listed there. Just see which ones really kind of stand out to you and go, oh, that's okay. You know, you'll see bear or spider will have a long, long page of stuff. Don't get overwhelmed by that. Just skim it, look through, see what resonates, and then that is the stuff that is coming through for you to be worked on. Point number three, I have our dimensional shifts and any kind of holographic vision. One of my dreams, I was holding an ID card and I was looking at my picture on it, and it was holographic, right? Normally, that's what your driver's license looks like, but in a dream, holographic, now you're talking about dimensions. Now you're talking about a space where time and space and logic and all of that kind of melds and vanishes, and you're in the realm of not even layers, but dimensions, right? Your ego is no longer in charge. Often these images will point to initiation and really non-linear ways of knowing and of healing. So if you're having holographic figures, space-time distortions, right? If you're like, what time is it? And then the time, seems to go backwards, or seems, all of a sudden you're years into the future. If you realize in a dream that the dream is a simulation, and I'm going to talk about lucid dreams in a little bit, but just worth mentioning here because we're talking about holographic shifts, right? So if you're like, oh, this is a dream, I could do whatever I want. Or this is a dream, I could do whatever I want, and I'm terrified. Doesn't matter. What you're actually feeling does matter in a dream a whole lot, but it is not the whole story. It's definitely not. You may be absolutely terrified, like, those spider dreams. Holy crap. Like, a lot of fear initially in those early dreams until I integrated the fact that spider is one of my allies. And by the way, my relationship with physical spiders I used to have a horrible phobia. Horrible. I would just scream and run away, and I couldn't handle it. My body would be shaking, the whole nine. And as I integrated that spider with a capital S, the way I think of it, is one of my guides. I stopped being terrified of spiders. Now I can easily trap one in under a cup, unless it's like a humongous one. Okay. But you know what I'm saying. They don't trigger me as much anymore because you integrate the energy. So, and then the other piece to this holographic energy is if your dream environment all of a sudden morphs into something different from what it was. And I don't mean like cut to another scene because dreams do that all the time. Dreams don't need to follow any kind of linear logic. But I mean, you're in a space that all of a sudden something shifts and you're aware that there's been a morphing that happened. That tells you, right? You are in the realm of transformation that happens at a very, very different pace and scale than our typical linear little goals and little steps, and step by step by step you shift who you are and achieve a goal. If you in a dream there is this morphing that's unexpected, that's sudden, and that's big, you're in a realm of transformation. I'll give you one example. a dream I had where I actually think I mentioned it in a previous video now that I think of it, but I was at an airport. I was talking to a clerk, and I don't need to go into the whole dream, but I'm looking at this clerk, and all of a sudden, he's still the clerk, but all of a sudden, I look like he looks like he's in outer space, and I'm looking at this enormity, and that meant to me, right? I was at the threshold. I'm talking to a 3D person, and then I'm seeing them as much bigger than 3D, many, many dimensions. Okay, point number 4. If you're seeing archetypal, mythic, or shadow figures. Now, that can encompass, a whole number of things that I can't possibly list. But if you're seeing guides, if you're seeing a crone, if you're seeing a god, if you're seeing a shaman, if you're seeing one of those mythical creatures, what's it called? Like a centaur, right? Something, if you're seeing a dragon, if you're seeing like even like a dinosaur, something that is really, really would be out of place in the 3D world. If you're meeting some kind of dark stranger, or not necessarily dark, but this kind of figure that seems to be larger than life, larger than our typical person. In the dream, they may not. But when you wake up and you sit with the dream and you go, whoa, that was kind of bigger than I realized. Because in the dream, you're in a very different kind of space, and you're not necessarily even subject to the rules of 3 dimensions. And it just kind of seems normal that this big figure, and I'm not talking physical size, obviously, but this kind of powerful figure. If you're seeing, let's say, the Dalai Lama, right, you might be bringing people in from the 3D world. I once dreamt of Riz Mirza. If you don't know who he is, he's a shaman. He's on YouTube. That is an amazing, amazing, real deal human and shaman and all the things. And so you might be bringing in those 3D figures, but if you've never met this person, right, and how are they showing up in your dream is because they are signaling that an aspect of yourself is ready to awaken. So for me, Riz Mirza is a sacred male, right? Someone who is very authentic, very connected, and also very masculine, right? Not toxic masculine, right? Authentic masculine. So that was an aspect of me that was awakening. That particular dream, actually, not only was I dreaming of him, but I had that lucid thing happen where I realized I actually was him. And so that's very rare, and I was very excited when I had that dream. But a lot of times you won't see that. You'll just have a dream where you're sitting and speaking to this person, or they're on a stage somewhere or something like that. That tells you you're in that realm of big dreams, transformational dreams. Some big aspect of you is coming through. So, okay, point number 5, dreams around death, birth, and any kind of thresholds, rites, actual initiations, right? They center around transitions of identity, right? Death is not about death. It's a psychic death, right? Something is dying of yours. It may be related to the grief that you may still be carrying, but that grief becomes the catalyst for the next aspect of you. So, also dreams where you are giving birth. That's that's one of the most common big dreams that happens actually, because you give birth to a new version of yourself. But also dreams of death, whether you are dying or someone else is dying. You're seeing a dead person. Funerals, weddings, and things like that can be those big archetypal events in a dream that lead to one of those big moments, right? Other smaller symbols in this realm are crossing a bridge, crossing a border, crossing a river, any kind of, and you can tell archetypally, right, what that means. It means you're moving from one place to another energetically, right? And then, of course, if there are any actual ceremonies, actual rituals, actual initiatory events happening in your dream, also are signaling big dreams. I have dreamt often of being in a ceremony. I could just be one of the participants. I don't have to be the leader. I don't have to facilitate. I could just be receiving. And it's just that kind of energy is very different from our day to day. And it very, very often, if not always, speaks to some big transformation going on. So, number 6 on my list is cosmic, elemental, or dreamscape kind of overwhelm and big energies like that. I've already mentioned that with another point earlier, but I guess I wanted to pull this out into its own point. When the landscape is vast, right? When you're looking out, and it's supposed to be just a place to take a picture that's really pretty, but you realize you're in an entire realm, you're in an entire world. Right now, you're in a mythic field. Now you're in the field that isn't your 3D, or even not the 3D. Now you're in a field that isn't your typical, something that you're used to, right? As you expand, right? Big dreams come when you're in an expansion, whether you know that you're in an expansion or not. And if they want to show you that you're in an expansion, you might see an expanded landscape, right? You might see, like I was saying before, cosmos, right? You might see space. You might think you're looking out a window, but all of a sudden you see you're looking into outer space, you're looking into a black hole, you're looking into you're on another planet, right? If something like that happens. So any place in a dream that you have a numinous, sacred, ancient feeling is speaking to you because now there is a numinous, ancient, sacred something in you that is awakening that you are ready to perceive. That's why the dream is showing it to you. I will mention in point number 7 is lucid dreams and waking within the dream. This tends to happen naturally if you do work with your dreams. I know there are techniques. I've never learned them. I don't want to. Maybe eventually I will. I don't know. But to me, waking up within a dream or even just having some lucidity, because it is on a spectrum, it is an indicator of spiritual readiness. And you can't rush that. You can have a lucid dream, but very often what happens is it's for the purposes of entertainment, and that's not what dreams are about. Not for me anyway. So people learn how to lucid dream so that they can do cool stuff. And great, whatever. That's, you do you if that's something that you like. I'm just speaking to how I work with lucid dreams, how I understand them, what they mean to me. And they mean so much more when they happen spontaneously. So I would rather have one lucid dream in a year or even in a lifetime that happens spontaneously because of some spiritual readiness and awakening than try to create them in kind of artificially. So if you realize you're dreaming, and you're like, you stay there for even a moment, because a lot of times we realize we're dreaming and it freaks us out, and then you just stop it and you wake up, right? But you stay with it on some level. If you're making a conscious choice within the dream, right? If you're like, ooh, I want to do this, I can do this, and then you go do it, even if that's flying, which is what most of us want to do in a lucid dream, because we don't even understand how weighed down by gravity we are, that when we have an option of not being weighed down, we just take it. So that's cool. Whatever it is, whatever conscious choice you're making, If you are someone who has a lot of lucid dreams, it's something that you can prepare for and decide ahead of time what you're going to do. So, like I said, I did not learn lucid dreaming. I don't have any of those techniques. So, there are lots of amazing people who can teach you how to do that, even on YouTube. So, but even if you're experiencing yourself as kind of being more awake, like you are, it's feeling more real than real. That is the realm of a lucid dream, and that is how you also know that something big is happening. Very often, lucid dreams mark the soul's readiness to collaborate with the unconscious. So most of us avoid our unconscious like the plague for the early parts of our lives up to your mid-20s or even your 30s, or some people avoid it forever. But if you're watching videos like this and you're still here, so you are in a different way. You're working in a different way, and we get to a place where you become ready to collaborate with your unconscious, not even just to receive messages, which is in itself a tremendous achievement, and to be able to receive messages from your unconscious and actually take them in and say, wow, I didn't know this about myself. Wow, this was a shadow I wasn't ready for, but here it is, and I'm going to accept that this is coming up. Right? That in itself is huge. But if you are in a lucid dream and it might be communicating to you that you are getting ready to actually collaborate, to consciously approach your unconscious, to ask it, what am I missing? Tell me about my ancestral trauma. Tell me about my womb. Tell me about my spiritual gifts. Tell me about the shadow that is blocking me from abundance, or whatever it is. As you're starting to become open to collaborating with the unconscious, you may start having lucid dreams, and they really are tremendous. They do feel like reality is not what it seems. And the last point I have, number 8, is ancestor visitations and lineage healing. You may have an ancestor that you know, or one that you don't, show up in a dream. I have an incredible, incredible experience of having my grandmother come to me in several dreams. And she was not an easy person. I did love her, but there was also that thing where you love somebody because you have to, you know. She was challenging. She had a lot of trauma herself. She survived the Holocaust. She survived like unbelievable poverty, and nobody taught that generation how to do the work, and that wasn't their work actually, how to do the inner work. That's not what they were for. Therefore, that's not that those weren't the purposes of their lives. And they inflicted a lot of trauma on my parents, on me. And so when she passed away, I was left with that. I mean, I did a lot of therapy around it, but I was left with a lot of like, I kind of like don't miss her very much, right? I didn't miss her very much. And then she started showing up in my dreams as an ancestor. She was in helpful roles. She was not there to apologize, right? She was not there to say, I'm going to try to make up for the trauma. It wasn't about that. It was about messages, and a connection started developing in a way that had no chance in the 3D. And so there was lineage healing. I actually had a dream where I saw my grandmother and her mother, and I spoke to her mother. And I said, "You did this." I can't actually remember the words that were spoken, but I actually went back to my grandmother's mother and helped her heal. That is actually happening, right? It's just because it's not happening in the 3D world, it's not possible. They're both dead. But in the dream realms, you go in through the astral, you go in through, I don't even know which dimensions. I am still learning this, and I will forever be learning this. But when your dreams bring an ancestor like this, Don't just assume that they're there because they sucked and because they're bringing and reminding you of your trauma. They might be there as guides. They might be there as healing agents. So if you are seeing an ancestor, whether, in their similar state that you're used to or some other pattern, if they're speaking to you, pay attention. They definitely have a message for you. The message may still be encoded in archetypal or symbolic symbols because it's still up to you to decide whether you receive the message or not. So, and it may seem subtle, it may seem like a very brief moment, but if you go into the dream back when you're awake, you kind of get into a dreamy space and you inquire. That's when you can start to see that it might have actually been a visitation. So those are the 8 points. I'm sure there are lots more. I didn't want to make this too terribly long, and I think it already is. But how many of these have you experienced? Were any of these surprising to you? And just let me know in the comments if any of this resonates, how this lands, and what other dream-related topics do you want to see videos on? Thank you so much for watching. I am so grateful for you. I will see you in the next video.